Many years ago, the Canadian government signed important agreements with First Nations people. These agreements are called treaties. Treaty 5, Treaty 6, and Treaty 10 were signed to share the land fairly. The government promised to help First Nations people thrive in a new way of life. These promises were important. They represented a new beginning, a chance for First Nations and the newcomers to live together peacefully. The government said it would provide tools and resources. These would help First Nations people transition from their traditional ways of life to farming and agriculture. Everyone hoped these treaties would bring a good future for everyone. The First Nations people believed in the government's words. They trusted that the promises made would be promises kept. The treaties included promises of essential farming supplies. The government promised to give First Nations communities ploughs and tools to work the land. They also promised seeds to plant and animals to raise. These were not just gifts. They were tools for survival and success in a changing world. These promises were essential for First Nations communities to adapt. Their traditional ways of life were based on hunting and gathering. The treaties aimed to help them transition to farming and agriculture. With ploughs, they could till the land. With seeds, they could plant crops. With animals, they could raise livestock. These tools represented hope for a future where they could provide for their families in new ways. The government's promises were a solemn commitment to support First Nations in this transition. Sadly, the Canadian government did not keep its promises. The tools and resources promised in the treaties were never fully provided. The ploughs, the seeds, the animals, they were slow to arrive, and sometimes they never came at all. This failure to fulfill the treaty promises had devastating consequences for First Nations communities. Without the means to farm effectively, they struggled to provide for their families. They faced hunger, poverty, and hardship. The government's silence was deafening. The First Nations people were left to fend for themselves, their pleas for justice ignored. Generations grew up carrying the burden of broken promises. Despite the government's neglect, First Nations communities never forgot the promises made to them. They held on to the treaties, passing down the stories of the agreements from generation to generation. They reminded the government of its obligations, seeking justice and recognition for the hardships they endured. Their fight for justice was a long and arduous journey. It was a fight for their rights, their dignity, and their future. They refused to let the government forget its commitments. Through it all, their spirit remained unbroken. They knew that the treaties were sacred agreements, and they were determined to see them honored. After decades of struggle, a historic moment arrived. In 2024, the Canadian government finally took a significant step towards reconciliation. They announced a settlement of almost $1.4 billion for First Nations communities impacted by the unfulfilled promises of Treaty 5, Treaty 6, and Treaty 10. This settlement was a victory for justice. It acknowledged the wrongs of the past and the government's failure to uphold its end of the treaties. For the First Nations people, it was a long-awaited recognition of their struggles. Tony Alexis, a First Nations leader, spoke about the significance of this moment. "This is not just about money," he said. "It's about righting a historical wrong." The $1.4 billion settlement is a powerful symbol of change. It represents a step towards a more just and equitable future for First Nations people. This money will be used to support communities, invest in education, healthcare, and economic development. This is about more than just financial compensation. It's about rebuilding trust. It's about creating opportunities for First Nations people to thrive. This historic settlement is a beacon of hope, a reminder that even after decades of struggle, justice can prevail. It's a testament to the resilience and determination of First Nations people and a sign of positive change in Canada's relationship with its Indigenous communities. This is a brief summary of an article written by Jeff Melchior. You can find his article in the description below. If you found this information helpful, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel, as this helps me to continue to search for timely trends and news to always keep you updated. Thanks for watching.